Welcome to the lecture series on Introduction to Indian Philosophy. Today I will talk about the Central Philosophy of Jainism. One great achievement of Jainism is that it popularized its philosophical doctrines in the prevailing languages of the times. Mahavira used Ardha Magadhi dialect to impart knowledge to the common people. Mahavira's teachings were grouped into 12 books called the Sutrangas, which were kept alive in the oral tradition, but with time they were lost. However, in 454 AD, the Shvetambara sect reorganized those teachings, and they are now considered and accepted as the authoritative sacred texts of the tradition. These sacred texts, or agamas as they are called, have been classified in more than one way. And according to one classification, these scriptures or texts or agamas are of four kinds. 1. Prathamanu Yoga, which consists of the biographies of the 24 Tirthankaras. 2. Charananu Yoga, it specifies the ethical code for a householder and a monk or a sadhu. 3. Karananu Yoga, or rather Karananu Yoga, it deals with the cosmos and its constituent elements. And 4. Dravyanu Yoga, which deals with the Jaina metaphysics as it concerns the nature of reality. Now, keeping this in mind while structuring my lecture, I can say that I dealt with the first kind, which is Prathamanu Yoga, the biographies of the 24 Tirthankaras, in my last lecture. Now, we can move to the second, Charananu Yoga, which prescribes ethical code for the householder and the sadhu. Now, the ethical code for a householder includes the 5 vows, namely Ahimsa or non-violence, Satya or truth, Asteya or non-stealing, Brahmacharya or celibacy or non-adultery, and Aparigraha or non-possession. These are restraints from violence, falsehood, stealing, sexual misconduct, and possession of worldly, unnecessary things. These are the anuvratas or small vows. A householder is not capable or even expected to act on these vows in a full-fledged manner. Let us see how. Take the case of violence. We know that one has to go through different circumstances in one's life which do lead to events and occasions where one may find it unavoidable to harm others, however slight or unnoticeable it may be. Let us take this further and understand what violence is. Violence means an action in which one consciously or purposefully injures or even kills a living creature. It also means hurting or inflicting pain to someone through words, that is, the way one speaks with another person. Obviously, if one is harsh with one's words while talking with someone, it will definitely not be appreciated by the listener. He will be upset and hurt. Now, violence also means thinking badly about others. Is this not mental violence? It is. So, if you try and analyze, you will notice that all these types of violence disturb the mental balance of the perpetrator of violence himself. Whether or not the person has been physically injured or is adversely affected in some way, the peace of one's soul gets disturbed. Anyway, coming back to the case of the householder. Why these vows are not of a stricter kind and are labeled as anuvratas or small vows? Imagine any daily activity that you do. It could be walking, cooking, bathing, washing, etc. Now, in all these actions, violence may be done accidentally. For there could be many organisms which get killed or hurt in these activities. Have you not killed an ant while walking on the road? Yes, accidentally. Not that you wanted to kill that tiny creature. Now imagine a farmer who sprays pesticides on the crop. For if he doesn't do that, the crop will be ruined by the pests. This again is violence against the pests, of course. But this violence is occupational in nature. And also, think of a situation where you hit someone or shoot someone to save yourself. We do hear such cases of self-defense. Now, this is protective violence. Now, lastly, tell yourselves how many times you deliberately kill a cockroach because you don't like it. Now, this is intentional violence. So, you can figure out the 4 kinds of violence one can do and one does as a householder. And I repeat what they are labeled as: accidental, occupational, protective, and intentional. So, Jainism teaches that one should at least absolutely abstain from the last, that is intentional violence, and be careful with regard to the first 3. One should not assume that the first 3 types of violence will not produce any effect on the individual's journey towards salvation. But the effect will not be that terrible. In any case, violence should be avoided. The householder gets similar allowance in the observance of the other 4 vows. But he must take care that neither he nor does anyone else spread rumors, make spiteful comments about others in order to make oneself popular in a gathering, make false promises or false claims, or be pretentious or forge documents, etc. To put it in a sentence, he must abstain from any form of falsehood. He must also take care that he does not accept anything that does not belong to him. It could be property, wealth, or even ideas. He must also remain restrained and chaste in his relationship with his wife, and should treat any woman other than his wife as his mother, sister, or daughter. He must also put a restriction on the level or amount or number of possessions that he needs for his family. And in the event of acquiring something beyond the restricted number, he should give it away in charity. These 5 vows or anuvratas endow the householder with the qualities of self-control and selflessness. In addition to the anuvratas, the householder is expected to make 3 more vows. They are called gunavratas. They are Digvrata, Deshvrata, Anartha Dandvrata. Now, Digvrata is a vow related to space. The householder must set a limit in all the 4 directions beyond which he will not travel. The second, Deshvrata, is a vow that relates to time. A householder must move or travel on purpose only for a specified period of time. The third is Anartha Dandavrata. The householder must take a vow that he would not commit any purposeless sin. For example, he will stay away from weapons, evil meditations, and evil actions. Then come the 4 instructive vows or the Shikshavratas for the householder. These vows instruct the householder in taking him towards ascetic practices, and they are Samayika, पोषधोपवास भोगपभोग परिमाण Atithi Samvibhaga. The first instructive vow or Shikshavrata Samayika is contemplation and temporary renunciation of attachments. The householder retires to a quiet place, which could either be a temple or a forest, withdraws his mind from all worldly objects and activities, and meditates on the nature of the self and the world and on the path to salvation. This he does daily, once or twice or maybe 3 times according to his convenience. The purpose of Samayika is to give mental strength and peace to the individual. The second Shikshavrata is Poshadhupavasa. Once in a month, the householder must keep a fast. In the sense he should abstain from all kinds of food and drinks, and he must spend his day in the temple reading scriptures. Then the third is Bhogapabhoga Parimana. According to this vow, for each day the householder must prescribe for himself food and comforts in a restrictive manner. And the fourth Shikshavrata is Atithi Samvibhaga, according to which the householder must feed a saint or a virtuous person every day out of what is cooked for him. Now these vows, 5 Anuvratas, 3 Gunavratas and 4 Shikshavratas add up to 12. And these 12 vows, if observed unfailingly, constitute Samyak Charitra or right conduct as prescribed in the tradition. But Samyak Charitra is possible only if one has deep devotion towards the Tirthankaras and their teachings, which constitutes Samyak Darshan or right faith. And Samyak Gyan is also important, and that is right knowledge of the 6 tattvas, which of course I will discuss in some time. I will now discuss the ethical code for a sadhu or a monk. A householder has to go through 11 stages before he becomes worthy or qualified to be a sadhu. The 11 stages are: number 1, Samyak Darshan; 2, the observance of the 12 vows; 3, self-contemplation 3 times in a day; 4, fasting on weekly basis; 5, renouncing green vegetables; 6, no meals at night; 7, unbending celibacy; 8, renouncing all household affairs; 9, renouncing all claims to property; 10, abandoning ties with the worldly affairs; and 11, abandoning food. A sadhu, free of the worldly attachments and possessions, carries with him a pot of water, peacock feather to drive away insects, and religious books. The Shvetambara sect allows the sadhu to wear clothes. The Digambara sect does not. The sadhu is expected to observe the 5 vows in the absolute manner, and therefore for them they are the Mahavratas, not Anuvratas. They are Mahavratas for them. Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya and Aparigraha are to be observed in the strictest way possible without any relaxation. The sadhu therefore must take some precautions. He must walk only by day, so that he does not kill any living creature by walking in the night. He must abstain from self-praise. he must only speak good of others, he must take good care of what he eats, he must have full control over his senses, he must be compassionate towards all living creatures, he must be indifferent towards those who criticize him. He must practice deep meditation and sing the praises of the 24 Tirthankaras. He must take care that no fresh karma gets accumulated on his soul. Now let me discuss the Karananu Yoga with you. Here we deal with the cosmology of Jainism. As I told you in my last lecture that Jainism does not believe in creation. The universe or cosmos is uncreated. It is beginningless and endless. The universe is made up of 6 ultimate reals or eternal substances or dravyas. They are Jiva or soul, and Ajiva or non-soul. The Ajiva further includes the rest of the 5 eternal substances, which are Pudgala or matter, Dharma or motion, Adharma or rest, Akasha or space, and Kala or time. You will find as we move on that the Jiva and the Ajiva both exhaust between them everything that is there in the universe. Just have a look at this passage. The living and the non-living, by coming into contact with each other, forge certain energies which bring about birth, death, and various experiences of life. This process could be stopped and the energies already forged destroyed by a course of discipline leading to salvation. Now we can analyze this passage as number 1, there is soul or the living principle. Number 2, there is also no soul or a non-living principle. Number 3, both the living and the non-living come in contact with each other. 4, this contact creates certain energies. 5, but this contact can be prevented or blocked. 6, and these energies can be exhausted or consumed. And 7, salvation will be achieved. We must keep one thing in mind that out of the 6 dravyas, the Shiva Tattva alone is the conscious principle. The rest of the 5 are the unconscious principles. I will first discuss the soul or the Shiva Tattva. It is characterized by consciousness and knowledge. Consciousness involves use of senses, respiration, and time-bound existence in a certain body. Knowledge, however, comes in stages depending on which phase of development the jiva is in. In the first or the lowest stage of knowledge, the jiva has the faculty of observation only, which is through the senses. It is the stage of mati gyan or observation, as it is called. In the second stage comes the scriptural knowledge and the experiences of others, and it is called shruta gyana. Then in the third stage of development comes the knowledge of objects that are distant both in space and time, and it is called avadhi gyana. The fourth stage makes the jiva capable to know the mind of another, and this stage is called manah parayaya gyana. And in the last stage, the jiva attains supreme knowledge called kevala gyana. Mati Gyan or observation and Shruta Gyan or scriptural knowledge are attainable by any human being. Avadhi Gyan and Manah Parayaya Gyan are attainable by sadhus. But the last, that is Keval Gyan, is attainable by those who have qualified themselves for nirvana. Now, the jivas are innumerable. In their bodily forms, they are classified either as immobile, that is sthavira, or mobile, that is trasa. The immobile are of 5 types. Those inhabiting small particles of earth, water, fire, air, or the vegetable substance. They have only one sense, which is the sense of touch, meaning they respond only in the case of physical contact. The mobile jivas are of 4 kinds. Those with 2 sense organs, 3 sense organs, 4 sense organs and 5 sense organs. Oysters, which produce pearls, they possess 2 sense organs. Bugs or lice possess 3 sense organs. Mosquitoes, flies and bees possess 4 sense organs. And birds, animals and human beings possess 5 sense organs. I also want to mention here a class of jivas called the nigoda or group souls. They are infinite and have common body and respiration. They permeate the whole world, even the bodies of men and animals. Some are slowly evolving and replacing those souls in the world which have attained nirvana and are out of this cycle of birth and death. A little difficult to understand, but I guess you will understand. So let's move on. Now I'll discuss the Jiva Tattva, the substance or dravya that lacks consciousness. As I just mentioned, it is of 5 kinds. First is matter or pudgala, and it refers to everything that the senses perceive, and therefore it is the basis of the physical universe. The elements of earth, water, fire and air are the crude manifestations of pudgala or matter. Paramanu or atom is the most subtle matter. Heat, light and shade are forms of fine matter, and their particles are constantly in motion. As a result, different formations come into being due to their continuous integration and disintegration. The second Ajiva Tattva is Dharma. It makes the movement of soul and matter possible. Although it is imperceptible, it occupies the whole universe, as it is the medium through which Jiva and matter can move. A fish moves in water because of dharma. No doubt, the fish moves on its own in water, but we cannot deny the fact that there can be fish, there can be water, but no motion. So, motion is an eternal reality which is formless, infinite, unitary, and in itself motionless. The third Ajiva Tattva is Adharma. It means rest. Now, just as there is motion, there is also its opposite equivalent, and that is rest. And it also fills the universe, as it is the medium through which jiva and matter stop moving and rest. So, rest too is an eternal reality, formless, infinite and unitary. And I want to make a point here that the words dharma and adharma must not be confused with the ethical notions of righteousness and wickedness. In Jainism, the words for righteousness and wickedness are punya and pap. Let us now come to the fourth Ajiva Tattva, which is space or Akash. Space is one, indivisible, eternal and infinite. It is the medium which makes the existence of all extended things possible. The part of space which is occupied by other substances is called Lokakash, and that part which is not occupied by anything, which is empty, is called Alokakash. This division is for the sake of convenience. In reality, however, there is no division of space. Space is one and continuous. Now the fifth Ajiva Tattva, and that is time or Kala. Time is real. Without time, no change can be accounted for. But time is not the cause of change. It is the ground of all change. It is imperceptible, indivisible, single, independent, and eternal. For practical purposes, we divide time into seasons, years, months, weeks, days, hours, minutes, and seconds. In reality, it is one and undivided. So, these 5 kinds of Ajiva Tattva together with the Jiva Tattva constitute the 6 Dravyas that exist in the universe. The Jiva or soul is permanent, but its association with the Ajiva Tattva, that is body, begins and ends. Now, it is time to hit the nail on the head and discuss that doctrine which makes Jainism such an admirable system of thought. And that doctrine is Anekantavada, which in fact is the central philosophy of Jainism. It means the doctrine of non-one-sidedness. More precisely, it is the theory of the many-sided nature of reality. It is a philosophy of synthesis of opposite viewpoints in philosophy. Of course, this kind of stand may confuse people, for it sounds impossible to synthesize opposite viewpoints. To preempt any such confusion, the Jaina philosophers introduced in their system a philosophical methodology called Nayavad, which is the doctrine of standpoints, and the second doctrine, Syadvad or Saptabhangi Naya, or the sevenfold predication. One thing is clear, that Jaina thinkers must have developed the Anekanta philosophy in view of the existing rival as well as strong philosophical systems. In fact, when the Jaina thinkers began to use Sanskrit language, the Anekant philosophy gained popularity and strength. Now, let us understand what Anekantavad actually is. And for that, we need to focus on the word Anekant. The word Anekanta means manifoldness of reality. Now, if for example a person X makes a statement like A is B, what X means to say is that the property B is attributed to A. And when another person Y makes a statement of the form A is not B, then Y contradicts the statement made by X. And this is precisely what happens when two different, or rather rival schools put forward their respective theses. One school says something or puts forward a thesis, the other school outrightly rejects it when it advances its own. Each school of thought regards its own viewpoint as the absolute truth. And due to this subjective stance, one school does not wish to understand the claim made by the other school of thought. And this ultimately gives rise to dogmatism and intolerance. So, what is the solution? The solution, according to Jainism, is Anekantavada, the philosophy which accepts manifoldness of reality. Don't you think this can really integrate the views advanced by schools that challenge or reject each other's theories? It will be interesting to know the Jaina thought on how to harmonize or consolidate the opposite views of different schools of thought. Some people believe that Mahavira propounded the Anekant doctrine. However, others believe that since Jainism is much older than Mahavira himself, he could not have been the propounder of this doctrine. Anekantavada must have been present in some crude, unsophisticated form from the very beginning, but generally thinkers attribute Anekant doctrine to Mahavira. One can easily associate the development of Anekantavada to the Jaina doctrine of Ahimsa or non-violence. And I will take a little digression here because something about the Jaina concept of Ahimsa or non-violence needs to be deliberated upon. This whole scenario of preaching non-violence started in the Shramana Movement. As you know, that it was a movement against the Vedic rituals and practices that involved killing of animals. However, I discussed in my lecture on the Shramana movement that Buddha was not against meat eating because he stated certain conditions under which meat eating was not blameworthy. Buddha followed a middle path, both in philosophy and in practical life. He was against anything that pertained to the extreme views. And which is why he was against the practice of severe austerities by ascetics or sadhus, because it was in some sense violence against one's own self. But for Mahavira, middle way is also an anta or a side. By rejecting the two extreme views and advocating the middle one is actually taking a side. Thus, according to Jainism, Buddha is an Ekantavadan. In case of Jainism, the middle view is accepted without rejecting the other views. It is assimilative and inclusive in nature, whereas Buddhism, or for that matter any other system, is exclusivist. And this is where the paths of the two great philosophers diverge. I will give an example to support what I just said from Bhagavati, where Mahavira resolves all ambiguities regarding the questions on soul. Mahavira says, there is another question, Skandhaka. Is the soul finite or infinite? This can be explained as follows. A soul is, from the point of view of its substance, finite, for it is countable as one. From the point of view of its area, the soul is again finite, for it has a sankhyaತ number of parts and also occupies an asankhyaत number of space points. From the point of view of time, the soul has no end, for it never ceases to exist and it is there always. From the point of view of its modifications, the soul is infinite, for it has infinite modifications of knowledge, infinite modifications of direct insight, infinite modifications of character, infinite modifications of formless quality. It has no end. Thus, a soul is finite in number from the point of view of its substance. It is finite or measurable also from the point of view of its area. but it is infinite or continuous from the point of view of time, and infinite or unlimited in number from the point of view of its modifications. Mahavira preached strict, inflexible and uncompromising principles. For him, the practice of austerities, abstentions, asceticism and disciplined ethical conduct were important for conquering the inner enemies of man, such as greed, anger, desire, etc., and for the purification of the soul. And none of these activities can be linked to violence. The Jaina doctrine of Ahimsa can be understood and appreciated from this passage from the Acharanga Sutra. And the passage goes like this: all beings are fond of life. They like pleasure, hate pain, avoid decay, wish to live long. To all, life is dear. All breathing, existing, living, sentient creatures should not be slain, nor treated with violence, nor abused, nor tormented, nor driven away. This is the pure, unchangeable, external law which the clever ones who understand the world have declared. This passage clearly states that all living creatures are equal and alike. And so we should develop the feeling of sensitivity and compassion for all fellow creatures. Now coming back to Anekantavada. I just stated that Anekantavada is a philosophical implication of the practical principle of Ahimsa, in the sense that it emerges in the form of respecting the views of another from the broader form of respecting the life of another. As it is stated by H.R. Kapadia in the introduction of Haribhadra Suri's Anekanta Jaya Pataka, and he says, this doctrine of Anekantavada helps us in cultivating the attribute of toleration towards the views of our adversaries. It does not stop there, but takes us a step forward by making us investigate as to how and why they hold a different view, and how the seeming contradictions can be reconciled to evolve harmony. It is thus an attempt towards syncretism. The word syncretism means fusion of various systems of thought. So we see that Anekantavada is based on the virtues of respect, sensitivity and tolerance. And this is the greatest achievement of Jainism. A genuine and truthful effort is made to recognize and honor the views of others irrespective of the truth or falsity of their views. Anekantavada is closely associated with two more doctrines, and I have already stated that. And these two doctrines are Nayavad, which is the doctrine of standpoints, and Saptabhangi, which is the doctrine of sevenfold predication. It is also called Syadvad. I will first discuss Nayavad and then move on to Syadvad. Now, Nayavad asserts that a thing has infinite aspects, and therefore there are infinite philosophical positions. Each position or standpoint is called a Naya. Each Naya is partially true and therefore gives partial knowledge. The various Nayas then are synthesized to give a full picture of the object. To understand what it means, I will narrate the old and popular story which you may be already aware of, and it is the story of the 6 blind men and an elephant. Now what happens? These 6 blind men come in contact with the different parts of an elephant. Since they cannot see the whole elephant, each one begins to describe the elephant in his own way by touching the part he is in contact with. The one who touches the ear describes it as a country-made fan. The one who touches the trunk describes it as a python. The one who touches the side of the elephant describes it as a wall. And they all fight amongst themselves, each one claiming his own description to be the correct one. But the person who is witnessing this whole event knows that the blind men are arriving at a judgment about the whole object by touching only a part of it. And this is precisely what happens in our lives. All disputes, whether philosophical or ideological, are due to this mistake of regarding partial truth as the actual truth. There are 7 nayas or standpoints. The first 3 relate to the substance and the last 4 relate to the modes of substance. Also, when a naya or a standpoint is taken as absolute, it becomes a fallacy. So, the first naya is called Naigama naya. Second is Sangraha naya. Third, Vyavahara naya. 4. Rijusutra. 5. Shabdanaya. 6. Samabhiruda. 7. Evam Bhuta naya. It is actually in Naigama naya we take a systematized view of things, as in we see their universal as well as their particular aspects. Take the statement Atman is consciousness. Here, both the aspects of universal in the sense of Atman being substance and that of the particular in the sense of consciousness being its quality are considered. It becomes fallacious when both the universal and particular are separately considered as real. The second, Sangraha naya, is about generalization. For example, in the statement, everything is being, the general quality of everything is emphasized and taken as the general substance of everything. It becomes fallacious when the general is considered real while the particular is rejected as unreal. The third, Vyavahara naya, is about particularization and is based on the empirical knowledge. Consider the statement, every object is material. Now, this is a popular view in which only a particular feature is emphasized. It becomes fallacious when only particulars are considered real while the universals are rejected as unreal. Do you remember the Charvaka philosophy? They were materialists. Now go back to the statement, every object is material. Now, being material is one of the specific features of objects. But if you consider it as the only real thing about the object, then in the eyes of Jainism, you commit a fallacy. Now let us discuss the fourth naya, which is Riju Sutra. Here, a specific moment or period is taken as the real. It becomes fallacious when this partial truth is stated as the real truth. For example, the Buddhist stance, life is misery. Now let us understand the fifth naya, which is Shabdanaya. An object is understood by the words that describe it, and that involves language and grammar. It may become fallacious due to linguistic reasons. For example, when one says, he sits, he sleeps, he wakes up. Here, one may infer that the pronoun he refers to 3 different individuals who are involved in 3 different activities. So, now we come to the sixth naya, which is Samabhiruda. Here, the derivative meaning of a word is ignored and conventional meaning is accepted. For example, the word Pankaja. It means born of mud. This is its derivative or literal meaning, but conventionally it means lotus. and that is the accepted meaning. Now about the seventh, which is Evam Bhutanaya. Here the words are used in their literal or derivative sense that pertains to its function or their function. For example, the word cow. Cow is used for an animal that gives milk. So, giving milk is the function of the cow. So, this is about the doctrine of Naya. Now, let us come to the other significant doctrine related to Anekantavad, which is Syadvad or Saptabhangi, or the doctrine of sevenfold predication. The distinctiveness of Jaina methodology lies in the use of the word Syat in its sevenfold predication, and that is why it is called Syadvad. The word Syat means perhaps or maybe. It is the word that suggests the anekant nature of a proposition. According to Syadvad, we can make 7 assertions about a thing which appear to be contradictory but are perfectly true. They are: number 1, it is Syadasti. 2, it is not Syannasti. 3, it is and it is not Syadasti Nasti. Number 4, it is indescribable Syadavaktavyam. Number 5, it is and is indescribable Syadasti cha avaktavyam cha. Number 6, it is not and is indescribable Syannasti cha avaktavyam cha. Number 7, it is not and is indescribable Syadasti Nasti cha avaktavyam cha. If we do some sort of instantiation, we can easily understand what Jainas wish to convey. Let us take the example of a father and consider the 7 assertions. Number 1, from a certain point of view or in a certain sense, this man is a father. Number 2, from a certain point of view, this man is not a father. Number 3, from a certain point of view, this man is a father, and from another point of view, this man is not a father. Number 4, from a certain point of view, this man is indescribable. Number 5, from a certain point of view, this man is a father and is indescribable. Number 6, from a certain point of view, this man is not a father and is indescribable. Number 7, from a certain point of view, this man is a father, this man is not a father, and this man is indescribable. Now, how do we digest these 7 assertions? What sense do these make? Wait, it is easy to understand. And these assertions do make sense. Assertion 1. This man, say X, is father in relation to a particular boy A. Assertion 2. But X is not a father in relation to another boy B. Assertion 3. In relation to both the boys A and B taken together, X is the father and X is not the father. Assertion 4. Since both the ideas cannot be expressed in words together, X becomes indescribable. Assertion 5. X is the father of A and is indescribable in the previous sense. Assertion 6. X is not the father of B and is indescribable in that sense. Assertion 7. X is the father of A, X is not the father of B, and X is indescribable, considering that the idea of his relation to both the boys cannot be expressed in a single word. So, there is no ambiguity, no vagueness. And with this, I will end my lecture. Thank you so much.